Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in Beijing. It's my second time in Beijing, and both times the weather was fantastic. And someone said to me yesterday that the good weather must follow me. Well, for any of you who would like to visit me in Ottawa or Toronto in January, you will realize that the good weather does not follow me. So ignore the comment about the reason for the good weather in Beijing this week. The topic has been outlined. It's about systemic risk and counterparty risk, what we've learned so far about monitoring systemic risk and counterparty risks in the immediate future and in the long term as we seek to build a more stable financial system. Unfortunately, one of the lessons learned to date is how little we really know about systemic and counterparty risk. But the good news is that we do have a lot more information now and are zeroing in on possible improvements to make the global financial system more resilient. Considerable work has been done in the past several months to take advantage of fresh memories and what I call a general will to act, to push for bold steps. And we do have a multitude of good reports that have been referenced here over the past few days. Financial Stability Forum reports, G20 reports, UK Financial Services Authority report, the Adair-Turner report, IMF reports, the list goes on. In fact, we have almost as many reports now, post-crisis, as we did financial stability reports prior to the crisis. So you may have a hint as to what I really want to talk about today, and that's whether we are over-promising and whether we need to be much more realistic about what can be achieved as a result of the lessons being learned from the financial turmoil. And I want to focus on macroprudential orientation of regulation and supervision as part of this. There is a growing consensus that a key element in improving safeguards against financial instability is to strengthen the macroprudential orientation of regulation and supervision. This means, as others have noted, that you need to focus on the financial strength of individual institutions as well as the system as a whole. I was reading a paper by Claudio Borio of the Bank for International Settlements, excellent paper, dated April 14th, 2009, so it's hot off the press. It's about the macroprudential approach, and he notes that it has implications for monitoring threats to financial stability and also for the calibration of prudential tools. So I want to take each in turn. Macroprudential monitoring is important. Monitoring more than just banks on a standalone basis does make a lot of sense. Borio points out in the paper the importance of common exposures across institutions and of a generalized, possible generalized overextension in balance sheets during economic expansions. Notable examples are unusually rapid increases in credit and asset prices and unusually low risk premium. Of course, we saw all of this in the run-up to the turmoil. Why didn't the whole world act? Because many laid out a lot of reasons as to why the risk premiums might be low, why asset prices might be high. They also noted the fact that the system had been resilient to disturbances up to that point. Presumably, the other factor at play was a general desire to prolong the good times, with all the advantages that are associated with growth. Now, everyone talks about the need to take away the punch bowl at a party, but I think that analogy really does underestimate the problem. Most adults will agree that during a party there is a point where you do take away the drinks. But most adults might not agree that similar steps are a good idea when the economy is growing and jobs are plentiful and the cost of credit is cheap. Now, I said earlier that there were many, many financial stability reports before the turmoil. And the question is, will the new emphasis on macroprudential monitoring simply mean that these reports will get thicker and thicker with no real impact? I actually think that the additional monitoring combined with financial stability being added to the mandates of regulators and central bankers, perhaps even accounting standard setters, as recommended by the G20, will help. It will cause everyone to spend more time assessing such risks, and it will mean that financial stability will get more focus and will require everyone to weigh financial stability goals against other goals like home ownership. But I don't think we should oversell that. Macroprudential monitoring is not a panacea for permanent financial stability. Why do I say that? Well, we can start with a powerful force called human nature. As pointed out by the Counterparty Risk Management Policy Group 3 report, otherwise known as the Corrigan Report, financial excesses fundamentally grow out of human behavior, which on the upside of the cycle fosters risk-taking, and on the downside fosters risk aversion. That report goes on to make a number of very, very basic recommendations. For example, know the risk you're taking, determine a risk appetite and monitor it, have good corporate governance, ensure that control functions have authority and independence from the business units, communicate well within the firm, among others. So what were we doing before this crisis if we do not know the value of those basic recommendations? We keep learning and relearning lessons. So why is it that people do not learn these lessons? Is it because they have short memories? Now, memory does fade with time, but I think I would also suggest it's because powerful incentives are at play. And perhaps we should be spending a lot more time looking at those incentives. Now, yesterday, Jeffrey Lacker touched on this when he talked about the too big to fail issue and the fact that people recognize that too big to fail might have existed and relied on it, and that incented some of their behaviors. And looking at incentives requires that we do a lot of thinking, and we have to look beyond bankers' compensation packages, for example. We might even have to go down some roads that are quite sensitive.